hand or raise our hand if we bought it. You know, if we were all in. And the feedback I got was about 50%. And that was surprising to me. And what I think today, let's give that a whirl. When someone gives a speech, when I'm acting as Toastmaster, at the end of the meeting, I'd just like a hand raise if you are all in, and please don't rip me off. If you're not all in, I would love to not see a hand go up, and maybe I could get some input and feedback from you. So let's take this meeting to the next level. Without further ado, let me start with invocation, and that will be our own Tracy Austin.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
Yes, you sit.
You can sit here.
And we'll sit there. Thank you, Tracy. All right.
All right. I rarely do invocations, and it's only at the last minute typically that I do an invocation. There's something about it that just doesn't come naturally to me. So I decided, in many cases whenever I struggle, how do I find something? Let me ask Google. So I just typed in Toastmasters invocations, and about 5 or 6 came up, and I found one out of there that I'd like to share with everybody today. So here goes. Emily Dickinson once said, "I dwell in possibilities. By joining Toastmasters and coming here each Thursday afternoon, we are choosing to dwell in possibility. As we gather around these tables, we acknowledge the courage that it has taken for each one of us to take this step toward realizing all of the potential that life has for us. Let us continue to dwell in our possibility with enthusiastic and passionate resolve." And that is my wonky invocation.
Thank you very much. So in follow-up, I would say if you would like a hand raise, please ask for that from the audience. I will not mandate that people do that. It will be an invitation to you to try something new if you choose to. Without further ado, let's get the humorist up here and get this meeting started.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. I have a major question to ask you. Ready? Why did the chicken cross the road?
To get to the other side.
Yeah.
Well, that's not, it's too active. So I've conferred with some of the top people in the United States, folks. And here is what they would say. Ready? George W. Bush, in answer to that question, would say, because there are weapons of mass destruction on the other side. Al Gore would say, to escape the rising ocean levels caused by global warming. What else? Dick Cheney would say, where's my gun? Nancy Pelosi would say, we don't really care why the chicken crossed the road. We just want to know if the chicken is on our side of the road or not. Colin Powell would say, now to the left of the screen, you can clearly see the satellite image of the chicken crossing the road. John Kerry would say, although I voted to let the chicken cross the road before I voted against it, I'm indeed in favor of the chicken crossing the road and will remain so. Pat Buchanan would say, to steal the job of a decent and hardworking American. Martha Stewart would say, no one called to warn me which way that chicken was going. I had a standing order at the farmer's market to sell my eggs when the price dropped to a certain level. No little bird gave me my insider information. And finally, Dr. Seuss might say this. Did the chicken cross the road? Did he cross it with a toad? Yes, the chicken crossed the road, but why it crossed, I've not been told. Madam President.
I'm in roll. Well, as we know, in Toastmasters, the meeting is half delivery of speech, and the other half of the meeting is feedback. And to me, both are equally valuable and vitally important. To that point, we have a general evaluator who today is Dr. Charles Saunders. Charles, will you
Yes, if you don't mind.
tell us what you're up to and who's on your team?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I'm responsible for the evaluation portion of the Toastmasters meeting today. And I don't do this by myself. There are a few things I do look for, which I will talk to you at the end. But I have people that are helping me make this meeting a success. So you've already heard from our humorist, David Nickel. We also have a table topics master, Ji Yun. Ji Yun, could you stand and tell us what you're going to be doing today?
As you know, table topic session is the time that we practice impromptu speaking. So I'm going to give you some questions and then you will be answering me on the spot. Good luck.
We look forward to that. And by the way, if you read the email that I sent out to the club earlier this week, you will note that word impromptu was in that email, because I got some feedback from another faculty member who had apparently been in Toastmasters somewhere, sometime in the distant past, because he was afraid of speaking. Can you imagine a professor who can't speak in public? I mean, some are better than others. But he found that the impromptu speaking experience from table topics in Toastmasters really helped him overcome that fear of speaking. And now, today, listening to him, you would never guess that he ever had any problems. So, Ji-Yun, thank you for mentioning impromptu. That's important to us. We also have a grammarian, Jeremy Beachy. Jeremy, could you stand and tell us what you're going to be doing?
I'm your grammarian today. I will be listening to all of our speeches and our speakers. I'm looking for good uses of the English language and also possibly a few not so good uses. I'll also be listening for our word of the day, which today is wonky. It means unsteady or shaky, as you can see in my wonky handwriting. Today we already heard Tracy use the word of the day in his invocation, so that's a great start. To use wonky in a sentence, it's actually a British word, so it comes from Great Britain, which I was kind of surprised to learn. So the sentence I saw referred to a wonky member of the British Parliament. I guess that can happen sometimes. So I will report on our grammar at the end of the meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'm all in.
Oh, yes, we're all in, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a timer today, Kevin McGrath. Kevin, can you tell us what you'll be doing?
Glad to. I will be timing everyone speaking today. And at the very start, for example, John McDermott is our first speaker. His speech is between 8 and 10 minutes. At 8 minutes, you will see the green light. At 9 minutes, the yellow light. And at 10 minutes, the red light. Karen, how long is your speech today? 7? Okay. Our table topics is 1 to 2 minutes, and our evaluators, they will be speaking for 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And at the end, I will be reporting back to you all.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And I also will be reporting back at the end of the meeting, and I do not in any way expect that this meeting will be a wonky meeting. Madam Toastmaster.
So you don't think it'll be wonky, huh? Well, I arrived late as Toastmaster, and I have left the introduction John McDermott left me at his office, but I do recall he is working, this is his 9th speech toward his AC Bronze, and he's working from a storyteller manual, and the point of your speech today, John, is to...
It's bringing history to life.
Bringing history to
You
life.
pretty much had it all.
Yes.
So there you go.
So without further ado, let's get John up here and hear about how he can bring history to life.
John, do you have an evaluator?
I do. Tracy is my
What, turn off the light?
Oh, yes, thank you. Hundreds of millions of chess moves are possible after just playing 4 moves by white and 4 by black. Hundreds of millions. This almost infinite game has been around for 1,500 years. It started in what is now India, traveled throughout Europe, came to North America last with the colonists. They often joke that Ben Franklin had to go back to Europe to find a worthy opponent. This is truly a game of the mind, the ultimate game of the mind. There's no luck involved. The ref didn't make a bad call. The sun wasn't in your eyes. You can't get a bad bounce. It's truly brain on brain, and if you win in chess, it's intoxicating, and when you lose, it's very humbling. My fellow Toastmasters and guests, chess is an amazing game, and today I wanted to introduce to you 3 people who I most love in the history of chess. It might put a few faces to this obscure game. Paul Morphy, he was the guy in the mid-1800s. Born in New Orleans, he was born to a wealthy family and traveled the country to find somebody that could beat him. He then went across the ocean to Europe, and his most famous game is referred to as the opera game. Duke Karl of Brunswick and his French aristocratic friend, Count Isouard, they invited Paul Morphy to the Duke's private box at an opera house in France, in Paris, France. Paul Morphy loved music and the arts. He was loving the idea of seeing Norma, this opera that he hadn't seen before. He gets to the box, they have a chessboard waiting for him. He had been had. Now, of course, there wasn't cable TV and the internet, so people often went to these plays and operas many, many, many times, even after they had already seen it. It was the place to go, it was something to do. And in this situation, they wanted to play chess against maybe the greatest chess player in the world. He finally relented, and they made up a team of 2, the Duke and the Count. And while Paul Morphy tried to watch Norma, they were playing him in chess in this private box. This box was just off the main stage, and I guess the Duke and the Count were making such a racket debating their moves versus Paul Morphy that people on stage actually every once in a while would look a little bit annoyed over at the box. And some of the lesser actors actually tried to peek in to see what was going on. The Duke and the Count were no match for Paul Morphy. Paul Morphy ended up sacrificing his queen, which is the most valuable piece on the board, but he had a plan, and he checkmated them in his 17th move, which is a pretty quick game, sort of a butt whipping. The Duke and the Count, their wonky attempt to beat Paul Morphy was no match. Sadly, Paul Morphy came back to the US, kind of retired from the game, figuring he had done it all, tried to start up a law practice after the Civil War, kind of lived off of his family's fortune. His mind unraveled just a bit, and he was found dead, sadly, in his bathtub at the age of 47 from an apparent stroke. There were some rumors that he had this little fetish with women's shoes, and he would arrange them in circles around the room, that when they found him in his bathtub, he had a ring of women's shoes all around the bathtub, but that is also been thought of as just kind of a cruel tidbit of info that's not true. Chess is a board game to Americans, but elsewhere in the world, it is more than a board game. It can get very political. The Soviet Union, for many years, thought of chess as a way to show your superiority, and they would invest millions into creating grandmasters. And in 1972, this young man, Bobby Fischer, who grew up in Brooklyn with his Jewish mom and a sister, became obsessed with chess. Chess became his life. That's all he ever wanted to do. He beat international master Donald Byrne when he was 13 years of age at the Marshall Chess Club in Manhattan. And that opened up a lot of eyes. He even let Bobby Fischer checkmate him, which is unusual. When masters play, they're so good they know that they're going to lose and they just resign. But because this was a 13-year-old kid, he knew that Bobby Fischer would get a big kick out of checkmating him, so Donald Byrne let him checkmate him. From that point on, they realized this truly was a chess prodigy, and he might be one of the greatest to ever play. In 1972, he played for the World Chess Championship against Boris Spassky from the Soviet Union, And it really captivated the world. Chessboards were hard to find in any toy store, department store in the US. They even played the games live in bars. Sadly though, Bobby Fischer was very quirky, very difficult to get along with. And this World Chess Championship almost never occurred. They were going to play half the games in Russia, half the games in the US. He didn't like that arrangement. He also wanted more money in the prize winning pot. Finally, Boris Spassky wanted this match to happen. They agreed to play in Iceland, and a rich donor bumped up the final winnings to $250,000, which in today's money is about $2 million. Game one, Bobby Fischer complained about the lights, he complained about the camera. In the lower left is kind of a candid photo of him looking annoyed back at the camera. He made a silly move at the end game. He should have realized it was a draw. He lost game one, but he stormed off saying that it was just a bad setup. He didn't like being on the stage, he didn't like the live audience, and he didn't show up for game two. He stayed in his hotel room, and he threatened to leave and go back to the US. And Henry Kissinger actually called him up, and it went something like this: "Hello, this is the world's worst chess player talking to the world's greatest chess player. You really need to play and finish this out." The whole world is watching. He agreed to play game three only if they played in the quiet ping pong room in the basement. And again, Spassky was annoyed, but he wanted to really play this out. He didn't want to win by default. Fischer won game three. They went back to the stage for the rest of the matches. 24 in total. Fischer would go on to win 12.5 to 8.5. They didn't have to play the last three. Sadly, his mind kind of unraveled. The lower right is what he looked like just before he died. He played a rematch with Spassky in 1992 in Yugoslavia. Unfortunately, Yugoslavia was under a US embargo, US sanctions, so he was violating US law. He renounced his US citizenship and became a fugitive and lived the rest of his days in Iceland until he died in 2008. Terrible anti-Semitic rants, even though he grew up in a Jewish household, anti-American rants. He completely kind of lost it. And it's too bad, because this truly was one of the most brilliant chess players to ever play the game, and it's too bad it ended the way it did. This is probably my favorite chess player, and this is just recent history. This is bringing history to life. This is my favorite. He's the current reigning world chess champion, and he's from Norway, Magnus Carlsen. If it plays for us, I actually have a little game where he played Bill Gates on a Norwegian talk show.
Okay, so let's.
I'd like to put on a couple things real quick. We've got the chess clock. Note that Bill Gates is on our right. He's already given Bill Gates his first move, which chess masters will often do that. They'll often give you an advantage in time, maybe even an extra move. Maybe they'll even give you one of their pieces. In this case, notice Bill Gates has 2 minutes. Magnus only has 30 seconds. He's already given Bill Gates his first move before the clocks even start. So the clocks are starting with Magnus playing. The first move is black, which is a little unusual, but that's just the way Magnus wanted it.
Let's go.
Yes, absolutely.
This guy has a real personality. He's a great guy, as well as a great chess player. like I said, he's not only brilliant, he has a personality. It's always nice when you have genius and you have humanity married together. It's sad when you have brilliant people that are just difficult to be with. And if you don't believe me, read the Steve Jobs book, because there's a case where, and sometimes they don't always come together. This guy's the reigning world champion. There's also a 60 Minutes interview with the late Bob Simon that's wonderful to watch if you ever want to get to know this guy a little bit more. And it's fun because a personality like that's really going to help grow the game. This truly is the ultimate game of the mind, chess, and a few people that might color it a little bit more positively for you and put a few faces to the game.
Let's turn the light on. Thank you, Tracy. Oh, what a delightful speech. Talk about bringing history to life. John, congratulations. I think you did that in spades. And for me, I know how to move the chess pieces, but I'm 100% aggression and completely shocked when all my pieces go away. But it kind of, this speech also gave me a sense of confidence, because knowing how often a chess master goes insane, I'm really pleased that I'm not very good at that. Well, let's get Karen Austin up here. Karen, what are you talking to us about?
So I'm speaking from the Confident Communicator Manual, Speech 5, which is Your Body Speaks.
Ah.
This is actually my 7th speech because I'm an overachiever and jumped ahead. And so now I'm going backwards. I am using this topic quite literally today.
Excellent.
As you will see.
Your Body Speaks by Karen Austin. Let's give it up.
Our bodies are miraculous creations, don't you think? I do. Right now in this room, we're all sitting here occupying bodies that are working, functioning without our conscious thought. My brain is a little hungry, so it's wondering when my next shot of glucose is coming. But my heart is beating, your hearts are beating, our lungs are breathing, our muscles are firing when they're supposed to fire. But I ask you, and I hope you'll ask yourself, when was the last time you actually thanked your body? When was the last time you actually appreciated what it does for you? I have been on a journey of appreciation. It was involuntary journey of appreciation about my body, because I am literally standing on miracles. I'm not talking about the kind of miracles that parted the Red Sea. I'm talking about man-made miracles. These legs I'm standing on are held together by a little bit of plastic, a lot of titanium, some glue, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And getting them has taken me on a journey through kindness and compassion and perception and change in perspective and patience that I never expected to happen. Here's how it started. I was in TJ Maxx, the one on Henderson Road. Ladies, you know that's the best one. 5 years ago, I was trying on dresses and shorts and bathing suits because we were going on a Caribbean cruise. And I put on that first dress, and I looked in the mirror, and something clearly was not right. And I looked again, and I saw something wonky. My legs looked wrong. And I said out loud, because I knew at that point that I had just embarked on something that I hadn't planned on and had no expectation of. I said, what the hell happened to my legs? Apparently, your kneecaps can slide off. This is a thing. and mine were leaving. The doctor said, he shrugged, yeah, you're gonna need knees. Like, you can get a couple tires.
Huh.
And I did. But we milked the old ones, my previous knees, for about 2 years with shots and tape, that tape you see like on athletes, and more shots and physical therapy. But eventually in 2012, I was traveling with my job, and I was in Detroit, and I was at a conference. Did the conference, went to bed, woke up screaming in pain. I had turned over and my knee tore. 2 weeks later, I had a new knee. Everything went great. It was actually a good experience until this knee did this, and it refused to bend. It was terrifying. I thought, oh my God, am I ever gonna walk properly again? So I went to the knee surgeon, and he said something you never want to hear from your surgeon. He said, that's never happened before. Oh. And then he said, I'm gonna send you to Fran. Well, Fran is a rock star physical therapist. She only does joints, but she is not known for her bedside manner or her kindness. The first thing Fran said to me was, yeah, I think we can fix your leg, but I don't care if it hurts. And true to her word, Fran sat me in a chair, took my locked leg, that's Raisin, Raisin Cave, took my locked leg, straightened it as much as she could, and then she put weights on it, and more weights, and more weights, until tears were streaming down my face. Fran looked at me and said, is that about as much as you can stand? And I said, I couldn't speak, I nodded. And she said, good, I'll see you in 10 minutes. And she left. The theory was that I had scar tissue keeping my leg from bending, and that putting the weights on it would help break that scar tissue. It didn't work. Also, the doc said, okay, we're gonna break that scar tissue, we're gonna knock you out. I'm gonna break it while you're unconscious. We did that twice, it didn't work. He even sent Tracy a video where my leg was like this, I'm unconscious, and he goes, look, Ma, no hands. Funny guy. Eventually, Fran figured it out. We have a muscle that goes from here to here, we all have it. It's called the IT band. The IT band is a structural band. This IT band was an overachiever. It locked and was not letting go. Fran finally figured out that the IT band was protecting my leg. So eventually, 6 months later, I gave up this thing. As I said, this is Raisin. Raisin traveled all over the country with me. Mostly in a wheelchair, through an airport. I had a suitcase on my lap and a cane up by my side. And Raisin taught me a lot about patience, because it is impossible and foolhardy to hurry when you've got what it is that you're depending on. So I learned to be patient, and I learned to say to myself, take a deep breath and remember there is no hurry, except sometimes you do have to hurry. A week after I had this knee replaced, I wound up in the ICU for 4 days because I was bleeding internally. I was lucky. It stopped as soon as I started taking the extra medication that they had given me that caused the bleed. But it was a life-threatening situation, and it took me 6 months to really recover. Now, people ask me all the time, would you do this again? And I say, heck yeah. Because I can walk. I can wear a cute little heel now. I could not do that 5 years ago. I know it's a vain thing, but hey. And I'm not doing this speech from a chicken, which is what I would have been doing had I not had this miracle of medicine to put these knees back together. So I hope that you will take from my lessons of perception and kindness and a little pain. And ask yourself tonight when you get home, sometime today, when was the last time I thought about my body, and tell it thank you.
speech reminded me of, I had some knee problems myself a few years back, and the thing that I still recall about that was being in a crowd and being so worried someone was going to bump into me. I think it's a precursor to how it's going to feel to be an old woman when I feel like that all the time. Some might say I'm an old woman now, but I am not, and with that I will turn the meeting over to our table topics master. You.